In Naples, the perfect pizza is cooked in a wood-fired oven. At Willow Street, our new pizzas, like our Dolce Picante, are also cooked in a wood-fired oven. The perfect pizza. It's closer than you think. Hello and welcome to Jazz Tonight. I'm Michael Jacobi, executive producer of Jazz on the Plazz and host of Raising the Standards on KSCO Radio, Santa Cruz. And we're delighted as we continue our homage to Duke Ellington in this week 3 of Jazz on the Plazz 2016 as we welcome an old friend back, excuse me, Lao Tizer.
Good to be here, Michael. Thank you so much. I know, it has. Well, you know, I have that effect.
I'm glad you showed up on Casual Wednesday.
Apparently, I got the memo.
Yeah, that's right. That was nice. Well, I thought having a little sign that said, "We'll do an interview for food," and then I just brought you in.
See what that'll scare us.
You have not. I think you did. We were talking about earlier. You did like 2005.
I think it was 4 or 5, probably 5.
Maybe like the third one we did.
Long time
before
ago.
We did television.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
We have stages and pianos and stuff now, so we're really excited.
There you go.
It's really looking up. We're speakers. It's really good.
It turns out all that stuff helps.
That's right. Well, we're delighted to have you back. Describe what you do, because I will say in advance how well you do it is remarkable.
Oh, thank you.
Talk about your music and how you got 30 seconds. You're at a cocktail party and somebody says, "Wow, tell me about your music."
Well, it's a tough one. We pull from a lot of different. So what the band is mostly is original compositions and stuff, and we work in different configurations. Obviously, because of the Ellington theme for this year, we've worked some Ellington stuff into the set, which is going to be super fun. Yeah. You know, these are like classic songs, and all the guys know them for so long. So really looking forward to that. But if I were to describe the word in or the band in one tagline, I would say it's like world jazz fusion. But it pulls from so many different flavors. So.
Now, years ago, when I first started in radio, I ran a station called KPEN, which was the first Triple Z jazz station in the country, which was really the first fusion station.
Right.
I'm trying to think, Pat Metheny and those kind of, I'm trying to think of something.
Were they playing like Weather Report and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that kind of chicory and stuff like that. When you say world fusion, is and fusion somehow morphed into smooth jazz, which I hate.
Right, definitely a different thing.
If you're a big smooth jazz fan, it's never going to happen here. But I mean, that was kind of bastardized. But fusion is totally different.
Yeah, I mean, I think fusion, in a jazz sense, originally came from when things came out of bebop and the cool, and it started to marry with rock and funk, like backbeat grooves, because jazz didn't traditionally have like a backbeat, right? It was more swing and lighter kind of cymbal approach, whatever. So when that started to happen, then you had the bands like Mahavishnu Orchestra, the Headhunters, Herbie Hancock, Chakria, and Return Forever, the Weather Report. Those were the seminal fusion bands. What it means now, I think just the word fusion just means kind of it's fusing different things together.
Well, it's interesting. You and I were talking about in the car. Last week we had Mark Winkler and Cheryl Benteen, who did a tribute to West Coast Cool, which you're really the follow-up to that. I mean, after the swing numbers of the late 40s and early 50s, this new sound of Stan Kenton and more vocalists and kind of a different, hipper sound came in. At a time when Miles was doing the bebop stuff, and this was kind of the precursor to that.
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of jazz and instrumental music in this country, obviously they call it the original American art form. Yeah. So keep supporting it out there, people. Right. It is our music.
Born of struggle and played in celebration.
Although it pulls, although that's the thing, it pulls so much from way back to Africa. And so, I mean, why we call what we do world fusion is because we are pulling those elements of some world music. There's definitely elements of like core jazz, some funk, some groove, and I mean the back to your question or your comment about like kind of the path that jazz has taken over the years is very interesting, the evolution, and I think there's people who are more purists who love the swing stuff or love big band or love Dixieland, whatever it is, all these different idioms, but I think today what's super cool is so many groups around the world that are pulling all these different flavors, both ethnically, geographically together, and moving the music forward. It's jazz. It should move forward.
Yeah. But are there situations? And I guess maybe I'm talking more as I'm certainly not a musician, but more as a fan of the genre. Are there situations like I liked bebop, but you get into the Ornette Coleman, which is
Sure.
almost can't listen to.
Right.
I mean, is there a situation where the tail starts wagging the dog, and some of it there's just I know if everything exists as its own entity, but at some point it's not accessible to a lot of people.
Right. I think I know exactly what you're saying. And I mean, by the way, as a musician myself, I mean, what my group represents and what we do musically obviously comes from, preferences of the musicians involved
Sure.
and me as a leader. I like really strong melody, composition, stuff that is singable, even if you're coloring it with a lot of cool harmony.
Yeah.
There is a point where some jazz, to a lot of, especially like you said, music fans or just listeners who aren't musicians, may sound a bit self-indulgent, and I don't think that's what you want. What I always think of in a show is we try and bring people in with stuff that's kind of accessible early on,
Right.
and then once you have people and they're kind of connected with what you're doing, you can take them on a bit of a ride and explore some other things. I think that's a good way to kind of pace a show. And one reason, by the way, Pat Metheny Group is one of my favorites, and also why they were so successful is the same thing, like really strong composition and really strong improvisation. It's the marriage
exactly.
of the two.
I mean, Jerry Rafferty's early stuff was like that.
Sure.
As well. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder.
Hippie
Colorado
town.
boy.
Not anymore, but it was
true.
hippie town back
You didn't move back when they legalized everything?
then. No, not yet.
When you see now, you missed when you
When
were
I go visit.
when you were in high school. Everything was illegal.
Yeah, it still felt like it was legal.
Yeah, that's true. Boulder is a Air Force Academy. Are they in Boulder?
No, that's Colorado Springs.
Colorado
So other side of
Springs, okay.
Denver. Boulder,
Okay.
Best known for like University of Colorado,
Right,
which is a very big school now.
You know, it's a hip place. It's Fort Collins.
Yeah.
I went back there, which is very much like Los Gatos, the downtown area.
I haven't been to Fort Collins
You should go.
in like 25
Kinda
years.
like
My
you would
stepsister
do
lives
very
there.
well there.
And like next time I go back home to visit, which I go, I'll be there this month and next month and whatever for shows and stuff. I got to go back to Fort Collins.
They have a
'cause
big
it's-
hat following there.
It's
You would do
evidently
well.
changed a lot over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit yuppified.
Yeah,
but it's very nice.
So is Boulder.
So growing up in Boulder, you ended up or continued to be a keyboard player. Did you start traditionally? Did you do the obligatory piano lessons?
Right.
Is one of your ears longer from your mom pulling you?
So my parents, when I was 5, got a piano for my sister, and I was the
That's
one
a good trade. Was she a bad girl? Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
right for her to learn.
And all of a sudden, you were
And
an
I was
only
an
child.
and
Not
things
too
really
bad.
better gifts at Christmas.
Yeah, this is a good thing.
I was the one who took interest in it and used to just kind of like, I guess you could just say, kind of bang around on it, like just play around. I didn't know what I was doing. One of their friends was a pianist who'd gone to the University of Colorado, and she showed me a couple like the most rudimentary, simple stuff, and I just played around with it. And then years later, when I was about 9, they finally got me lessons. And yes, it was the proper, like classical approach. And I always grew up playing classical music. I didn't actually get into jazz until my later teens is when I first started listening to it and getting more into it. I came very much from like a classical, neoclassical kind of place. And I always composed and improvised since before I ever even got lessons. So
Now, I've talked to a lot of piano players. Do you know my buddy John Prue?
I don't know him personally, but I know
Okay,
the name.
But
Yeah.
we talk about the classical background as much as we make jokes with mom and your grandmother teaching you. It's such an important background, particularly for the move into jazz.
It really is. I mean,
And the Duke in particular wrote an awful lot of sacred music.
the thing is, most of the premier jazz pianists, like Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, those guys could all play classical.
Yeah.
Thelonious Monk's the one who I think he did play some classical, but definitely didn't have like the traditional classical training. If you watch him, he had a very unorthodox approach, but because of that, he had such a unique style. Like nobody sounds like Monk.
The sound of glass breaking.
Not my quote.
But it's
Yeah, I mean, but I think for classical like bass, there is no better bass for pianists technically than classical music. To play Bach, to play Mozart, to play that stuff that's technically lays out your hands so well, teaches you like the rudiments, and jazz is definitely a technical oriented art form, especially to play prolifically. So yeah, you know.
Okay, so you're playing was there music around the house before the piano got there? Your parents into music?
Yeah, now that's the interesting thing. I've been asked this many times. My dad had a huge collection of records, like all kinds of interesting music. He was never into jazz. He's still not into jazz. I don't think he really gets quite what I do. He would like to see me be more like, there's a side of me
My son travels.
that will compose like very thematic, soundtrack-ish kind of stuff, and that's something I'd love to do down the line at some point too. He thinks that's more who I am, but what I grew up with was basically the music of my parents' generation. So like Sam Cooke, Buddy Holly, Elvis, Janis Joplin, you know, some of the 60s stuff. They weren't like quite into Southern rock and like classic rock. It was more like 70s and before. And then a huge selection of world music from all over the world. You know, Ravi Shankar, Japanese shakuhachi, the music of the Sufis. And I think for some reason, just because I heard so much of that as a kid, it just naturally kind of made its way into my being and has come out in different songs over the years. Because I've had people ask me, other musicians, like, where are you from? And why did you write this too? Like, it doesn't sound like something a kid from Boulder, Colorado would have written, I guess.
Were you in a rock and roll band?
Never.
Never a rock and roll? Never
Not
a garage
until-
band? Were you in a garage band?
No, not really, because I was always a soloist until I started my group in my late teens. Now I play with a blues rock group, which is a bunch of buddies and a couple guys who work with my group too. It's super fun. I've been doing that for some years.
Doesn't one of the guys with you play with Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
Yes, Rick Fairbracci does. Yeah.
I used to produce the Palo Alto Jazz Festival. We had Blood, Sweat, and Tears 20 years ago when he was still with them, David Clayton Thomas.
Right, yeah.
That was a fun time. That Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago, all the with the horns and that crossover
Classic
rock
music,
was
yeah.
very cool.
Well, and the players from the original Blood, Sweat, and Tears, I don't know if it was the original lineup, but I mean, all those guys, Mike Stern, Randy Brecker, Jocko, all came through that band. It's quite a lineage, yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to take a little break. You're watching Jazz Tonight. We're with Lao Tizer. I want to take a moment to thank the good folks at Willow Street Wood-Fired Pizza for sponsoring the show. And as I say, we'll be back in just a minute, and I'll tell you about a way you can help keep jazz alive.
Hey, come here. You know why I bring my folks here so often? Because Willow Street has the best kids menu in town. And kids eat free on Tuesdays. Thank you. You're welcome. Now that's what I'm talking about. Can I get a wine list? Never mind.
In New York, the perfect pizza is prepared with fresh, creative toppings. At Willow Street, our new pizzas, like our prosciutto di Parma and gorgonzola, also feature fresh, creative toppings. The perfect pizza. It's closer than you think. Welcome back to Jazz Tonight. We'll continue our conversation with Lao Tizer in just a moment. I wanted to take a second to remind you that our major fundraiser for the year, our gala, is coming up on July 26th. It's $200 a ticket, and it means the world to us, and it will to you. The food is spectacular, wines, the food done by Tallulah Bay Catering, and the entertainment provided by the Manhattan Transfer. So it's going to be a special evening, and as you know, I refer every week at the Plaza to our Jazz Angels corporately because they help us so much, but that's their part. Your part is, if you want to keep jazz alive, to step up and buy an occasional jazz card, buy reserved seats, and certainly come to the gala. We sure do appreciate it. And you see people like this gentleman, except the show already ran. I always have to explain that because you're going to kick yourself if you didn't go to the show. I heard about that show. I heard it was great. Okay, so you're playing piano. At what point does the keyboard come into play?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Now,
so
isn't that like an epiphany? It's like all of a sudden, whoa,
yeah, you know what's funny? It's like
I don't need to pay a drummer.
Yeah, fortunately I still do. You know what, like, so I was playing for some years. I used to go to the music store sometimes or go to the piano store just for fun. And they always had like those Yamaha Clavinovas in those days. This is like early 90s, I guess. And I was, I mean, what kid isn't going to be like, oh, cool, I can play all these other sounds, whatever, right? So I finally got my parents to get me a keyboard when I was 14. It was an Ensoniq, which isn't even made anymore. And this was like 1993. And the deal was...
The only instrument they didn't have was piano.
Right.
All the other.
And the deal was I had to pay my parents back a little more than half the money over time, and so I started performing. That's what got me to start performing. And then you fast forward all these years later, it's funny because now I just prefer to play piano or like Rhodes or, the organic instruments. It's interesting how
But now
musicians...
that you have a group with you, do you still play keyboards? Then?
I do, yeah.
Okay, and why?
Well, I mean, if there, some venues, if there's an acoustic piano at the venue, then a lot of times I'll use piano and a keyboard, or my ultimate setup is like grand piano with a keyboard on top, and then
We've
a
done
Fender
that.
Rhodes.
Are we doing that for you?
Rhodes and keyboard. Yeah.
We are. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
So yeah, I mean, you know, it just kind of depends what's available. I mean, when you're traveling like we do, and for the audience, there's this thing called backline, which means, you know, you send a list of the gear you need.
Right.
And the problem with, say, instruments like a Fender Rhodes, which is a vintage instrument, is you don't know what you're getting on the road.
Right.
So a lot of times it's safer to stick with keyboards. But at home, I just play my grand piano all the time. That's what I write on. That's my main thing.
But as you say, when you went to the music store, what is it about a keyboard that says, this is cooler, or this gives me, I would think it gives you ability as a composer.
Absolutely.
Because you're acting.
The sound and timbre of any instrument or voice that you use, like, could be any instrument. Like, imagine you're a bass player and you decide to pick up sax, right? It's going to inspire different things. Now, the cool thing with keyboard is that you can pull up all those sounds on a keyboard and play them. So, of course, it's going to inspire, like, new ideas. And that was always, you know, it's like a kid in a candy store. I mean, now, as you know, this is 20 years later, 20 plus years later. Now it's, you know, I've honed my tastes into the tones that I really dig, but still, sometimes you can just sit down at a piano and just because the nature of that piano, tonality and whatever, brings out something different. I've been inspired to write specific song, a specific song by a piano. Like in that moment, it just happens, you know. That's the beauty of music, and all these instruments are different, and you never know what's going to move you in the moment.
Do you do lyrics?
No.
No. Have you have that look like I wrote something once?
Almost never. I did jot down some things over
did?
the years a long time ago, and probably at some point I will. But
I wrote a country song once called "Living on the Outskirts of Love," which is a pretty cool title.
Right, yeah.
But that's my whole life. It's taglines. I had nothing of quality to build up to
actually
the
be
big
a good
tagline.
album title for a country record,
Living on
right?
the Outskirts of Love.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fun to do. Maybe partner up with a lyricist at some point, or maybe I'll try writing my own. But you know, it's kind of one step at a time. Actually, this new project that
I want to talk a little bit about the new project. Before we do, I want to ask you, vinyl. Do you still love vinyl?
Vinyl.
Vinyl for.
You know,
I'm not asking anything kinky. I meant on record. Yeah,
the show or the actual records. You know, I made the big mistake, like most people did. I had a couple hundred LPs back in, like, you know, 2000 and a record player, and for some reason I got rid of them.
Yeah.
And now I wish I hadn't.
Well, I took them to my mom and said, put these wherever you threw away the baseball cards.
Yeah. I know. Well, yeah. I mean, now it's made such a comeback. I mean,
you know, I remember the first time you listened to a CD, you went, oh, this is so much better.
Right.
And then you realize how warm vinyl is.
Right.
And it was a totally different talent.
It is.
Mixing.
Yeah.
Mixing.
It's like the same thing in movies, right? If you
Yeah.
look at those old classic movies, I mean, we all know digital technology is amazing, and HD TVs and 4K and all that, but there's something about, like, you look at
like a hands-on.
the Ten Commandments, like look at the colors and like it's the same thing with vinyl. It's that organicness. The same thing you get out of a piano versus a piano sound on a keyboard. It will never be quite the same.
Tell me about the new project.
Okay, yeah. So the new,
which, by the way, we can get you a CD in a year.
Right, 2017. So we just recorded a new project, which actually just settled on a title. It'll be called "Songs from the Swing House."
It's not Living on the Outskirts of Love.
No, but next one.
Next one.
I'm stealing your title.
Songs from the Swing House.
Songs from the Swing House.
And what is the Swing House?
Well, actually, I mean, it could be anything. It kind of represents the project because it's fun. Swing House represents jazz.
What's that little club in Newport Beach you used to go to? Wasn't
No.
That's the other Swing House.
Yeah, right. I was just talking to a manager about this yesterday when we were discussing
Somebody's
the title.
I've been there.
So the record we did all live in the studio.
Now explain that. Which, I mean, if you don't know recording, you're going to go, well, of course they did it live.
Right.
But what does live mean?
Live meaning all the musicians playing live together like a concert in the studio. In basically the same room. We had the drums and percussion in the large ISO booth. And then everybody, the horns, strings, bass, guitar, all in the main room. And then just when there was acoustic guitar, we isolated that. So that was it.
So it's like Capitol in the old days.
Yeah. We actually looked at Capitol as one of the rooms. We ended up recording at a room in LA called Conway, which is a pretty legendary LA studio and great vibe. And it was all filmed live with 7 and 8 camera video shoot.
Incredible.
So we're in the process right now of the videos being edited. So there'll be complete song videos and a DVD. So the entire thing. And then of course there'll be the audio side as well. So we're very excited. It's got quite a cast of musicians on it too. Yeah.
Is it like video in a courtroom, you got to say to yourself, you're not playing to it. Whereas, I mean, you're like Murph in the Mellotones. You don't finish the song, don't go.
No,
change it.
not at all. It's
So
like
it's like a draw. It's almost like.
It's like a documentary
Yes,
of
okay.
making it. I mean, there's tons of B-roll. Maybe we will make a behind-the-scenes thing too. But every song is a complete thought performance with everybody playing live all together.
And
You know,
got
we're
a
all
good
wearing
director
headphones.
that's mixing it down. And
Yes, the mixing is nearly done. And
the same guy did
the same guy who's
Snarky
done
Puppy.
Snarky Puppy. Yeah, Andy LaViolette, who's a great guy and works his butt off. He directed it and brought in some local shooters who have become friends of mine. So all the camera ops, a lot of them were musicians and camera ops, so they're really great at portraying what we're doing because they understand the craft of playing the instrument.
Would you consider yourself Snarky Puppy, the brothers of different mothers?
No, yeah, we're stylistically.
What would you call? Would you call them World Fusion?
I don't know what Snarky Puppy.
We had them
it's
last
a
year.
pop.
I knew.
I mean, you could call
crazy.
all of
They
it
were
is
great,
kind of
but-
loose. You could call it pop jazz. You know, they like us. They pull from all sorts of different flavors. But musically, I would say we're in a different realm. But I think their audience would dig us, and vice versa.
For the folks that haven't heard you, World Fusion, would you consider Weather Report or Chick
Sure.
Corea?
Sure.
So
That
Just
with
to-
maybe a little bit stronger influence from some of the world stuff, because we get into some like Afro-Cuban. There's definitely some stuff that's strongly like African influence. There's Latin stuff. And you know, because of my writing, because the classical background or whatever, there's some stuff that's very thematic as well. So there's similarities, but it's like two different things, but I think either audience would appreciate the other.
And you normally, or maybe you've started doing it, you normally don't do a vocalist?
Normally we don't. This was the first project every record I've ever done was all original music, all
So you're
original
doing some
compositions. This one we did arrangements of 3 vocal cover tunes.
Which were?
A tune by Zeppelin,
Okay.
a tune by U2, which we'll play tonight,
Okay.
and a tune by Cat Stevens. And we really took
What
the
Cat
tunes.
Stevens?
Sad Lisa, which is
Okay.
actually a dedication to the executive producer's daughter who passed away 2 years ago
Okay.
at only 29. So we did a dedication to her. And I have to say, doing arrangements of cover tunes is not something I'd ever done before, but it was really fun, and I felt like we made them our own. And especially Sad Lisa, I felt like I kind of rewrote the song almost, you know, I mean, and it was a really cool experience.
I'm hoping that the idea of Sam Ellington pleases the guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, of course. They're, you know, diehard, long time.
Does, as you delve into, I mean, throughout your life, the Great American Songbook is surprises around every corner. And what's so neat is your take on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's fun about doing any cover. Like, you could also take a standard. Like, we were playing around with, say, Caravan, which we're going to do in the show. Like, there's a million different ways you can do any of them. You could change, the fun thing, and this is why jazz is so cool, is the interpretive nature of it, right? So we can take it and turn the song into our own thing. Like the U2 tune, people won't recognize it. Until they hear the chorus, they won't realize it's that song because it's a completely different song.
I saw Storm, you know Storm Large? Okay, I saw her in New York last year. And she opened, she was with Feinstein.
Okay.
But she opened with an AC/DC tune, which was, I could just see Michael going,
Who was there was a jazz pianist who did like a whole record of jazz trio arrangements, like piano trio arrangements of Metallica.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Alex something.
Well, I'm a great believer in that there is a new American songbook.
Right.
Is that life didn't end with Rodgers and Hart.
Right.
Is, you know, I mean, whether it's Jimmy Webb, Billy Joel, on and on. I mean, there's a lot of great writers in the last 30 years.
There are a ton of great writers in the last 30 years. I mean, and if we look forward, it'll be interesting to see 20 or 30 years from now what people look back as, like, you know, I think the music of the 70s, the Eagles, like that kind of stuff. I mean, those are iconic songs that are going to live on forever. The question is, what from our generation now is going to live on that long? And I mean, I think that's where a lot of people's who are within the music industry have that concern.
Favorite live show you ever saw? Any
Favorite live show, man, that's tough. Kenny Garrett Quintet at Cape Town Jazz Festival was pretty breathtaking.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we played Cape Town a couple years ago, and we saw a bunch of bands there, but they were special. It was super cool.
I saw the Highwaymen once.
The
The Highwaymen with Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson.
That'd be classic.
Who else was there? Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and
Not Waylon.
Waylon.
Oh, Waylon. Okay.
Waylon, and it was.
I grew up
It was
with
unbelievable.
Waylon and Willie. That
was-
record played in my house a lot
Yeah,
as a kid. Yeah, I know all those tunes. Yeah.
I saw Willie 2 years ago at 80. He did 3 hours.
You know what? I got to say, another show that I saw, definitely a lifetime highlight. I was in New York visiting my now ex-girlfriend, but this was last spring.
But she may be watching.
And I found out on 2 days' notice that Keith Jarrett was playing at Carnegie
Oh,
Hall.
really? Ooh.
And just solo piano, his only solo piano improvised, show of the year in North America. And I happened to know the promoter, and I emailed him, and he's like, "There's a couple seats left." They were the way up at the top, but to see Keith Jarrett in Carnegie Hall, that's special.
Folks want to find out more about your music, want to buy CDs, they go to your website?
Yes, everything's on iTunes as well.
Okay.
Some stuff is under Lao Tizer, some stuff's under Tizer. So
Okay.
you can find everything on the website, which is my name. That's LAOTIZ, as in zebra, .com, and look either under Lao Tizer or Tizer.
Lao is a Swedish name?
Lao is Chinese.
It's a Chinese name?
Yes.
One of my favorite movies. What movie am I thinking of?
Oh,
The Seven Faces of
which
Dr.
I've
Lao.
never seen.
With Tony Randall.
I
It's
need to see
terrific.
it.
You would love it. I know you got to get back to your GQ cover shooting.
Clearly, I'm going on to my modeling. I've got a runway gig in a couple of hours.
Lao Tizer,
Thank
a
you so
delight
much.
to have you back. It has
Pleasure.
been too long coming, but those 4 phone calls a week for 10 years helped.
Man, this is only eating into just a bit of the phone bill from all those calls.
It's too bad because if by the time you see this, he will already be thrown out of the Black Watch.
Here's hoping.
Thank you, buddy. That's Jazz Tonight. Next week we'll be chatting with Nicholas Beard, who will be here with the great Full Spectrum Jazz, our house band. Until next time, that's Jazz Tonight. Thank you, Willow Street. I'm Jacobi. I'll see you soon.
In other words,